All right, Movember, day 2. Tonight I want to use this little video to talk about the question, am I an addict? How do you know when you're addressing a problem, whether you've got a use issue, an abuse issue, or you meet the criteria of addiction? So tonight, to keep it simple, I'm going to take this out of the Patrick Carnes, Stephanie Carnes, John Bailey book, Facing Addiction, but you'll also find it in Carnes's Facing the Shadow. Well, actually, no, you won't. They haven't put it in the next edition of that one, but you will find it in this. I like this because I sit with a lot of people that come and see me and go, look, is this an addiction for me? And it's important to work out if it meets the criteria of addiction, because it determines how you're going to treat it. So, the little paragraph that I always find helpful to read to someone says this: am I an addict? People who are using too much often wonder whether they are really addicted. They wonder if they're having a problem with the substance, or they're substance dependent. It is possible that you are having both problems. The main difference between the two is that there's increased tolerance and withdrawal symptoms that are part of the diagnosis for dependency. Typically, an individual starts abusing drugs and alcohol, and then use progresses to dependency. So largely we all start off using something. Now, if we have got a susceptibility to regulating our affect outside of ourselves, then we might fall fairly quickly from use to abuse. And then if you can build up a pattern of use and you've got some predisposition on board, then you might find yourself confronted with an addiction. Now, I wasn't going to do this, but I actually will do it. The definition of addiction, which I will pull from Alexandra Katahakis's book on sex addiction, which is probably the best book for therapists that I've read on this subject. She pulls from the American Medical Association's definition. She says that addiction is a primary chronic disease of the brain, reward, motivation, and memory and related circuitry. Addiction affects neurotransmission and interactions within the reward structures of the brain, including the nuclear accumbens, anterior cingulate cortex, basal forebrain, and amygdala, such that motivational hierarchies are altered and addictive behaviors, which may or may not include alcohol and other drug use, supplement healthy self-care related behaviors. So it's that idea that we have, it's an addiction of the brain's reward and memory and related circuitry. So how do you see it from the outside? That's what the scientists are telling us from the inside. So how we see it from the outside, if I'm sitting with someone and they're wondering if they're an addict, I say, well, look, we're going to find that out pretty quick, because it's got to meet a criteria. If it doesn't meet a criteria, it might be an abuse issue, but it doesn't meet the criteria of addiction. So what you're looking for is, now, when a person has developed an addiction, you will usually see certain destructive behaviors, and these are: 1, compulsive use. If the alcohol or drug is available, and the drug could be gambling, work, sex, etc., the addict uses too much of it and uses it often. 2, impaired control. When an addict tries to use, control is lost. Usually a single use is followed by many more. As is often heard in Narcotics Anonymous, one is too many and 1,000 never enough. I shouldn't have forgot that. Continued use despite a consequence, which is number 3. So continued use despite harm or consequence. Addicts keep using drugs, alcohol, sex, food, whatever, even when it causes health, relationship, job, or legal problems. 4 is craving. The desire for alcohol or drug can change in intensity from minute to minute. It can even disappear during abstinent periods. But using even a tiny amount can wake up cravings and trigger continued use. And people, places, and things associated with use in the past can also wake up cravings. One of the things that I think is just noteworthy in that little reading is a lot of people will lose that desire, that craving, and they'll come back into therapy or a 12-step meeting and say, look, I think I beat this thing, it's gone. And I just remind them it's actually a criteria of addiction. It's not evidence that you're not an addict. There's actually a criteria of addiction itself that if you've had craving and it just goes miraculously through abstinence, that it could just be dormant, and that, you know, people, places and things related to the use or the drug itself used, even a small amount, can re-trigger the whole thing. And if you've ever been an addict and had that experience, it's shocking, because you think you've nailed it, you think you're okay, and then all of a sudden the horse has bolted again. And last but not least is denial. There is a saying that addiction is the only disease that tells you that you don't have it. The degree that an addict can minimize drug use and consequences is one of the most striking manifestations of addiction, as well as the most baffling to others. Breaking through this denial is an important component of addiction treatment. There's a lot of good 12-step literature out there on the phenomenon of craving, but I always think that if you've got an addict who's minimizing use and minimizing the consequences of that use, there is usually a chorus of the baffled, whether, you know, so, and that chorus gets smaller as the addiction goes on. It might have started with a whole choir, but in the end there's just one codependent left, just hoping you'll change. But generally there's a baffled person, just bewildered by the repetition, the insane repeating of the same behaviors, expecting a different result. So if you meet that criteria of addiction and you are trying to battle this thing on your own, with promises to self and doing it with, you know, without any help and without any consultancy, please, if you're listening to this in Movember, day 2, reach out for support for someone that is a specialist in the area that you need help. I see a lot of people for sex addiction and drug and alcohol addiction, but sex addiction in particular, I've come across and heard every bad bit of advice you can get. Please seek out people that are specialists in the area that you're struggling and get the support you need. You're worth it. This is a Movember message for 2018. It's for my new YouTube channel. If you can and feel inspired, share this video with anyone that might benefit from it, and please subscribe to the new channel to get more content like this. Be gentle with your heart. Bye-bye.